Welcome to this video presentation of the karma and character of Kamala Harris and Donald J. Trump, candidates for president in the United States, and their relationship astrologically to the chart of the United States. I'm Altazar of AltazarAstrology.com. I've been a spiritual astrologer for over 35 years, and you're welcome to visit my website. And before we begin this exciting and insightful presentation, I'm going to just post my contact information for those of you who might be interested in readings that reveal the depth of your life purpose and or the timing of possibilities in your life this coming year. So you should now see that contact information. You're welcome to contact me via email or go to my website, altazarastrology.com. And for those of you who contact me and mentioned my video, I will offer a free introductory reading. And you may contact me regarding that via email or text to schedule. So I'll be posting this contact information again, but now let's get into the exciting revelations associated, starting with this candidacy of Kamala Harris and how it has transformed and galvanized the Democratic Party's enthusiasm for this upcoming election. Yet, who is Kamala Harris? And you see, from an astrological point of view, I always look at the natal chart of an individual to see what their personality, character, and even integrity is as it's associated with their karma. Now, as a spiritual astrologer, different from, let's say, a more media or character personality astrologer you'll find in the West, we look at the astrology chart as a summary of the tendencies of attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors that a person has accumulated through their past lifetimes and what they bring into in this lifetime, which doesn't absolutely imply that's how they will behave or their moral integrity, but it does imply the potential for gifts and talents and character qualities, as well as negative proclivities and, let's say, disruptive or uh, behavior that's not appropriate. So we only actually know that by our observation of any individual as they are at this time in their life. Have they and do they demonstrate their karmic gifts, talents, character qualities, and integrity? Or at this time in their life, are they more uh, being dominated by their negative karma and or the attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors that are not in harmony with a support of their own soul as well as the world? So that's the approach we're taking here to start. And then we'll see what that chart, Kamala Harris and Donald J. Trump, have in regards to a relationship with the chart of the United States. So here we go. And we're going to start out with Kamala Harris and her natal chart. And so I'm bringing them up here on the screen. And we'll be looking at, to start, what has been indicated by some investigators as the accurate birth date of Kamala Harris and even birth time. So there you see them. Now, I will point out that, prior to her candidacy, when Joe Biden was still the candidate, you'll note that, about 5 or 6 videos ago that I conducted sometime back around June, I did this similar comparison between Joe Biden, karma and character, compared to Donald J. Trump. So for some of you, uh, if you viewed that video, you're going to hear some things repeated about Donald J. Trump, since I'm renewing that perspective in this video. Now, when we look at Kamala Harris' natal chart, and from the spiritual point of view, uh, we start by looking at the day of the week that she's born under, a Tuesday. Now, whether you are aware of it or not, many people don't even know the day of the week they were born. But every day of the week has an underlying symbolism associated with a theme for that person's life. And the weekday goes with a certain planet. In fact, I have a video on this website that is devoted to just discussing the days of the week and their implications. So, what I'm indicating here is Tuesday is Mars Day. More obvious for some people is Saturday is Saturn Day. But when a person's born on Tuesday or Mars Day, that implies that they have an underlying theme in their life of being an initiator, a self-starter, someone who has a strong drive, energetic inclination and enthusiasm for evolving their identity and discerning the gifts and talents that they do have that can be applicable in some way that is inclined to a leadership position and or even a position of inspiration due to their own example. And I'll note, as just a reference, Martin Luther King Jr. was born on a Tuesday. So these are not average people born on a Tuesday, and often can be rather intrepid pioneers in their field. And if you will, if they're inspired by moral integrity and the goals that uplift the greater good of society, they can be fighters for justice and the integrity of social progress. So there you go. But that's the theme under the Tuesday for Kamala Harris. She's born on October 20th. Now, in numerology, every day of the month has a symbolism as well. For those of you who eventually might get a life purpose reading with me, you're seeing a snippet of an example of the detail that goes into describing a person's potential vis-a-vis their relationship with the universe. A 20 person who's born on the 20th day, regardless of the month, is someone who is here to be an insightful advocate for others, for the public, is someone who's a supportive person. As much as she has the Tuesday, Mars Day, incredible pioneering ambition and energy and activism, she's inclined to be someone who works for the greater good and is inclined naturally to want to support the well-being or even the empowerment of others, especially more average, mainstream, working class or middle class people. Now, the year that she is born in, 1964, is the Chinese year of the wood dragon. Now, I say wood because there's 5 types of dragons: metal, water, wood, earth, and fire. And that element changes every 12 years when that Chinese year returns. There are 12 Chinese years. So when a person is born in the year of the dragon, we see this as corroborating evidence of things I've already discussed. The dragon is a mythological creature who is powerful and can be authoritative, and in its typical mythology is a fire-breathing creature, can be even ferocious. Yet, someone born in the year of the fire dragon might be somewhat in that inclination, a very powerful charisma and aggressive energy. But the wood dragon, if you're born in a wood year, and that's going to be in a 4 or a 5 year in any decade, that implies you are very likely an older soul who has cultivated and explored a philosophical, ideological, intellectual, and or religious or spiritual ethical guideline for how to conduct your life. And so a wood dragon is someone who is inclined to be guided by ethical or moral principles and or an awareness of their responsibility to the greater good of the world. And yet, as they're born on a Tuesday and they are inclined to be an activist and someone who really works at that kind of inspiration and leadership direction. So these are all, fundamental themes. On the other hand, someone born in the year of the dragon can be overly self-absorbed and domineering and controlling and inclined towards their own selfish attainment and establishment. So every interpretation has a high side and a low side. And so there's like no absolute that this is the way that person is, or they're going to be the negative side of that person. But again, as I've shared in the beginning, we look at an observation of who this person is now and their attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors, and are they more complementary to the higher, more gifted, positive karma, or are they demonstrating and falling into more the negative side of that behavior? So next we look at in her chart the fact that she is a sun sign Libra at 27 degrees, and she has that within a few degrees of Mercury. We call that a conjunction, within 4 degrees. So that means her solar energy, her identity expression, her thematic underlying expression is to be a communicator, to be an intellectual, and or someone who garners and masters information through education and other training and experiences to be someone who can then be a leader and a communicator for a positive direction in society. Now, when we look at the destiny number for Kamala Harris, we add 10 plus 20 plus 1964, and you get 1994. You add those numbers together and you get 23, and then 2 and 3 is 5. So everyone has a destiny number related to the summation of their birth date. And destiny number 5, again, more corroboration here, is the number of someone who would have the freedom in this life to get a good education and cultivate their communication as well as intellectual abilities, to be someone who also uh, is able to experience and engage in a variety of professional endeavors and aspects of society so that they cultivate an executive ability that allows them to have a greater sensibility and understanding of people and circumstances and pluralities of society from all different walks of life. And so the destiny number 5 is the number of freedom and responsibility and the cultivation of intellect, intelligence, and communicative ability that can then be applied in an executive capacity as a manager or a leader. So far, so much in line with what we observe about Kamala Harris and in her experience of becoming a lawyer and then becoming a district attorney and then the attorney general of the state of California, becoming the senator with her experience, knowledge, and multi-dimensional understanding of society, also based on her own unique background, combination of Afro-American and Indian of Asia background, and and so she then becomes vice president with that dimension and multifaceted understanding of society and the economic, political, and cultural angles and aspects of our society. This is not uncommon for someone with destiny number 5. Now, I'll also point out to her favor that this is the Chinese year of the dragon, this year, 2024. So, for any person, when your Chinese year happens to come around once every 12 years, it's going to be one of the best years of your life, hopefully, if you are in alignment with the spiritual, astrological, karmic dimensions of your life purpose. And that can propel you into a rather favorable and uplifting direction, which it certainly has for her, this being the year of the dragon. We'll talk about Donald Trump if you haven't seen the video from the past. The year of the dragon is actually the worst of the 12 years for Donald Trump, being born in the year of the dog. And in fact, in relationship compatibility, if two people are dating, uh, of the 12 Chinese years of birth of a potential partner, there is one year that's going to be, the most incompatible with you. So if Donald Trump attempted to date Kamala Harris, he would be attempting to date a woman who's born in the most incompatible year, Chinese year for him. But that's just a statement as well about the politics. So let's come back to Kamala Harris. I've talked about her Sun Mercury conjunction out of sign Mercury and Scorpio, which implies she has a deep, retentive, and very multidimensionally perceptive mind and intelligence. The difference between being smart and just being able to spout off a lot of intellectual or information and combining it with perception of people, culture, or politics, circumstances. And so we look to see these two are in a triangle. See these triangles here to Saturn. And also the Mercury is in a trine to the midheaven, the cusp of career public service, the 10th house of this chart. So when the Sun Mercury combination, the communicator, the intelligent intellectual, the perceptive executive, and it's trining Saturn. Saturn symbolizes the summary of the greatest karmic challenge that a person has in their life. It can either be a summary of sometimes the hardest problematic challenges one may experience in the outer world, materially with their job, career, their family, their finances, etc. And the extent to which one has uh, favorable karma with the planet Saturn. Saturn is symbolic of essentially your relationship materially with the socioeconomic, political structure and material structure of society. So when a person has Saturn, and trines represent positive karma, by the way, so it implies that in her prior lifetimes, she has been a soul who has very likely been a political authority, if not at least business authority and materialistic authority in society, who has uh, used her intellect, intelligence, communication ability, and policy orientation favorably and in harmony with the socioeconomic challenges and uh, cultural diversity of society. She has Saturn in the sign Aquarius, and that implies one who is called in this lifetime to use that uh, persevering upward mobility, meritoriously gained socio societal political status for the greater welfare and good of humanity and or society. That's her calling. And that Saturn is near the top of the chart, the house of career public service. And she has this trine here. And the trine also represents someone who, that's why she's a wood dragon. It implies someone who has applied their moral, idealistic, philosophical, and ethical consciousness, has applied that consciousness to decisions they have made and communications they have made to the socioeconomic and political policies of society. Saturn trine Mercury and the Sun implies as someone who is a strategic planner, who has a deep and cautious and or contemplative approach to decision making when it comes to their policies or approach to issues in the world. So you have a dragon here. Now, you know, everything's not wine and roses, yet most of it is. Uh, we also note that she has Mars in Leo. Donald Trump has Mars in Leo too. These are people who, the fire sign, the Leo dragon, the Leo lion, and the quality of confidence and enthusiasm and charisma and leadership drama can be quite profound. They both have it there. You know, they can be in front of masses of people and talk eloquently and or at least talk confidently. I will reserve my position on Trump when we get to him. But her Mars in this opposition to Saturn implies that she comes from a humble background and that she has uh, been forced in this lifetime to believe in herself. In other words, that she has somewhat of a karma with a T-square to Jupiter in Taurus and the area, the decanae of Capricorn, and the Saturn square to the Jupiter and opposite the Mars, that uh, in her prior lifetimes she may have compromised and settled for uh, being in a more mediocre position in society. She may have been a college professor. She may have been a social service person, in a case manager or something like that. But didn't necessarily believe or take to understand the spiritual principles of goal setting as well as faith and belief in your gifts and talents to dream and work continually towards a meritorious gain and upliftment in one's socioeconomic political status position in society. So this T-square implies that she would have the drive and the initiative which we have observed through her career's ascension to the vice presidency of uh, embracing the correct spiritual principles that have allowed her to establish the goals, the connections, the support, the faith, etc., to um, attain positions that she has earned. So, and lastly, I'll point out here this North Node in Gemini in the first, right on the conjunction of the, if that birth time is accurate, which according to my sources is, the North Node here, right on the rising sign based on birth time, implies the greatest growth for this person is to discern and own their own unique gifts, talents, and abilities that they recognize and others recognize is of great service to the greater good of society and the world at large in the Aquarian decade of the North Node in Gemini. So one of the last things I'll look at in a person's chart is, gee, how caring are they? How loving are they? That's the Venus position. And by the way, the first house is the house of Aries, and Aries correlates with the year of the dragon and the North Node, and associated with Mars. That's associated with Tuesday. So we can see all the corroborating evidence here, not to mention her moon in Aries uh, correlates with the year of the dragon, and Aries being ruled by the planet Mars, and Mars being associated with Tuesday. And someone with moon in Aries in this 27th degree is someone who has a drive and a personality that's outgoing, initiatory, has charisma, and is ethically or has a moral compass to its orientation to engage the world, as the moon is in the 11th or Aquarian house of social humanitarianism. So, as I'm coming back to Venus here in her chart, she has a Venus in Virgo combination with Pluto and Uranus. And that combination is favorably karmically aspected to Neptune and Scorpio. You see the triple asterisk here. So that uh, looking at anyone's chart, you can see how loving a person or how elevated their consciousness of their awareness of the interconnectedness of life circumstances and people, which is what love is about, based in their Venus position. We'll get to Trump soon, but she is a a highly evolved, loving, and compassionate soul. She has no adverse aspects to her Venus, but she has a Venus Pluto Uranus combination, which implies, some people can just be loving with their family or in a romantic relationship or with their marital partner or their children. But when a person has Venus connected to Pluto and Uranus and Neptune, they are a soul who has cultivated the higher octave of just personal love to a level of spiritual compassion. This is a soul who has dedicated their attitude, belief, behavior, and identity to the greater upliftment and transformation of society in the socioeconomic and structural circumstances, and has an inner sensibility of what is the right thing to be doing, Neptune aspect, that really serves the greater majority of people. So again, I preface all of these recent videos, political orientation, that I am not, with this exposition, endorsing any candidate. I'm just revealing the truth of their astrology. And believe you me, had I known nothing, I'd never heard of Kamala Harris, and you told me that, oh, she is running for office in my community or my area, I would trust her. Now, looking at the chart of the United States, we're going to look at, well, how does Kamala Harris fit into the chart of the United States at this time? So I'm going to move this chart over a bit, and you're going to see that the natal chart planets of Kamala Harris are dispersed around the layout of the chart of the United States, which this chart is acknowledged to be the most accurate for a country based on July 4th, 1776, the signing of the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And so what we see here, and I have to preface this again by the current circumstances of the condition of the United States. See, certain people fit into a circumstance at a certain time and they don't at other times, So, as I've described in previous readings regarding Trump and Biden and even the vice presidents, that the current political crisis that the United States faces at this time has to do with this Mercury-Pluto opposition in the natal chart of the United States. Now, there are other issues that do arise at other times for the United States, but why does that issue come up? What is that issue? Okay, well, first thing I'll say is that when we do a horoscope for any individual or a country, we look at where are the planets at any point in time. And I will point out that at this time, Pluto is right in this position in the chart of the United States. Pluto has been in the last degrees of Capricorn, moving into the sign Aquarius over the past couple of years. And so what does that mean? Well, let me just say this, that it takes Pluto roughly 240 years or so, a little more or a little less, to go around the chart through all the signs and come back to the original position it was in anyone's chart. Nobody lives 240 years, but a country can and does. And so Pluto has come back to its return position. Just to give you another example of a horoscope, everyone experiences their Saturn return, which occurs during your life between the age of 27 and the age of 30, and between the age of 56 and 60. So when you have your Saturn return, it's a time that challenges what are you doing with your life? Have you found a job, career, profession? Are you manifesting your gifts, talents, and abilities in a practical way in service to the world? That becomes accentuated during your late 20s and your late 50s. Now, back during the American Revolution, why was there the American Revolution? Taxation without representation. Why did the colonists throw the tea over the board of the ships in Boston Harbor? Because the King of England and his cronies and sycophants of the wealthy classes were exploiting the colonies, overly taxing them, and exploiting the economic resources for their own padding of excessive wealth gain and exploitation. That was the American Revolution was about the fight for freedom and the fight for democracy to control the economic, political, and cultural environment of the American colonies, eventually the United States. So why is that a problem now? What has Pluto is back here. Pluto represents Pluto in the second house of money and business and finances and the economy. It's back and it's challenging the ongoing history of the United States. Mercury opposite Pluto is a history associated with the United States between a balanced and ethical and democratic approach to the allocation and availability of economic and land resources for the upliftment of the average middle and working class person as well as ethnicities versus the attempts by greedy capitalists, monopolists, and others to gain monopolistic control of the economic resources or as concentrated amount of power regarding the economy and the political environment for their own excessive profits. So that's the continuous battle. You know, why did the Southern aristocrats fight and want to perpetuate slavery despite its contradiction to their so-called Christianity? Because it was economically profitable. The way to, harvest cotton and sell it. And so today, haven't we observed the continuous concentration of and monopolistic evolving of wealth through the corporations and the certain technology corporations and Amazon and Elon Musk and Bill Gates towards this billionaire class that once the Supreme Court allowed for the donations, unending donations from PACs and billionaires to political parties, we're seeing this concentration of wealth and Donald Trump's tax cuts for the billionaire class that further pilfered the economic well-being of the middle class, as well as the undermining of democracy through the corporate and billionaire classes' control of the media through their donations and ownerships. So this is the crisis that faces the United States. Will there be a renewed enhancement of the availability of democracy for the middle class and the working classes of this country, and increased taxation or the fair taxation of the billionaire and the elite 1%? By the way, the top 3 or 4 billionaires own more in assets than 51% of the rest of the American people. Will there be a renewed approach to recreating balance? It's not to eliminate wealthy people or their opportunity to become wealthy, but when we start to have the resurrection of King George and the elite from the American Revolution, that there needs to be another revolution here to reclaim a balance for opportunity and meritorious economic advancement of the middle class and their ability to democratically elect those that represent that interest for ethical democracy, as well as uh, the balance of even union policies that take into account in businesses the health and welfare of communities, workers, and the environment, so that our environment is not decimated by corporate and profit-driven pollution. That is what this Plutonian revolution is about. How does Kamala Harris fit into that? Uh, you see 27 degrees opposite Moon and 27 degrees Aries. Look at that. Pluto, 27 degrees Capricorn. We have an exact square and a 3-degree out of square to the Mercury. And so the question is, Kamala Harris, her identity and her political inclination could either be supporting the eighth house, the billionaire class, and the exploitation and consolidation of wealth away from the middle class, or it can apply her inclination towards the rebalancing of the economy for the middle class and the re-democratization of the political system. She's right in the middle of it. But what we would see here is that the rest of her planets, and remember I talked about her love, compassion, and care for the upliftment of the well-being of others, that Venus, Pluto, Uranus is all favorably aspecting the sun sign and Jupiter of the United States, the identity of the United States favorably, ethically, and morally. And so we further see her Jupiter in Taurus in a trine to the Neptune in the United States, a re-embracing of the ideology of democracy for the betterment and the spiritual well-being of the United States. We see her Saturn, and remember talked about here, that primary high karma that she has, Saturn trining her Sun and Mercury, in aspect to the moon of the United States. And here's where we see the favorable kicker, that her sun is 27 exactly trine the moon of the chart of the United States, and her moon is exactly sextile the moon of the United States, and Saturn is right on it. You couldn't ask for a more perfect astrological compatibility for someone who has an intelligence and a moral integrity to evolve the social welfare. That's what the moon has to do with, the social humanitarian welfare and democratization of the people of the United States. Again, I'm not attempting to, we haven't even talked about Donald Trump's chart yet, but believe you me, if you showed me her chart and then this with the United States chart, and I never heard of her, I'd vote for her. That's how much synchronicity is here. So now we're going to move on to the karma, character, and USA chart of Donald Trump. So I'm now going to bring up the astrology birth natal chart for Donald Trump. and also that chart of the United States. So you should see those now on the screen. And some of you, if you saw my video number 1 on Biden versus Trump, some of this may be repeat information about the karma and character of Donald Trump, but it's worth noting here. Uh, First of all, Donald Trump's born on a Friday. And I just want to say that with anybody's chart, I'm not about to judge them, whether they're good, bad, indifferent, or, people are complex. That's what an astrology chart is, you're seeing here. That an astrology chart, essentially, with all these planetary positions and the houses and the cusps and the day and the moon and all of that. Now, there's as many as 72 factors that go into describing who a person is. And as I've shared, most of us come into this life with a mix of karma or a mix of how we have expressed our attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors in prior lifetimes, either in alignment with ethical, moral, and spiritual principles that enhance our soul and lend towards a favorable relationship with the world, and or we're either out of ignorance or just egoic self-will or excessive pressure from parents or society or friends. We have, through our attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors, been out of sync with a positivity with others, ourselves, and the world. So again, in interpreting a birth chart is fixed. It's established the moment someone is born. We have their date, time, and location, and that the symbols of that chart do show all these karmic proclivities or positivities. And then we see, as a person grows and lives out their life, to what extent, especially, they have acknowledged their gifts, talents, and abilities, cultivated them, and utilized them favorably in service in the world. And hopefully, and this is the greater mission for everyone, get out of denial about what our negative attitudes, beliefs, behaviors, or proclivities are, and embrace the antidotal spiritual, personal growth, psychological, and social practices that help us heal and go beyond those blocks. So I offer that extended introduction as we talk about Donald Trump. So I will start by saying that, you see, Donald Trump, not unlike, many people with, a rather complex mix of karma, had the potential of being a very favorable, positive, uh, social, even ministerial servant to the upliftment of the consciousness of society and the world. So I'll preface it by saying that, why he incarnated in, the good fortune of a wealthy family with great opportunity for his education and personal growth development. Well, he comes from a karma of his sun sign in Gemini. Let's go back to the day of the week. Born on a Friday. If you're born on Friday, that's Venus Day. So Venus Day implies that you are a person who is here to really learn a lot about how to be in personal, romantic, and or cultural experiences and relationships with others, and how to really cultivate a more harmonious experience of being in relationship with community, family, and other people. Whether you do that or not, well, that's the question. That's a question. So we note that he is born on the 14th day of the month. That implies that he's definitely someone who is highly ambitious and driven towards accomplishment. That number 4 is indicative of that. And the summation of this name, 15, 1 and 4 is 15, that implies that his ambition is to really cultivate confidence, talent, skill, and intelligence to be a multidimensional communicator, that yet a communicator that revolves around his own personal life experience or his own personal sensibilities. You recall Kamala Harris is a 20, a 2 is the beginning of her. 2 implies people who are naturally attuned to a sensitivity and receptivity of an awareness of dealing with others. Number 1s, combination, are learning to further evolve their own unique identity, and how hopefully that can be serving others. We note that he is born in 1946, and that is the year of the fire dog. Now, I'll just mention, someone else born in 1946, the rock singer Cher. People born in 1940, the year of the dog, like Michael Jackson and Madonna, are born in 1958, the year of the dog. But the year of the dog generally are artists and or ideological, political, or community activists. So what I'd like to point out here that there's an entertainment element very connected to people born in the year of the dog, especially the fire dog, which is fire represents having the most charismatic and outgoing and energetic and enthusiastic type of personality. And certainly Donald Trump cultivated that through his media expeditions and ultimately his television show, The Apprentice. Yet it's worthy to note that 3 of our recent presidents of the United States all were born within a month of each other in 1946. Trump, born as a Gemini in June. George W. Bush, born in July as a Cancer, 1946. And William Jefferson Clinton, a Leo, born in August of 1946. So we see here that, there is definitely that charismatic, communicative, political community activism and orientation. Now, pointing out again, this is the year of the dragon in Chinese astrology. And of the 12 Chinese years, the year of the dragon is considered, from a horoscope point of view, the most challenging, if not the most difficult and frustrating year for one who is born in the year of the dog. Now, I think we've experienced and observed that, from Trump being convicted of 34 felonies in financial fraud, and having been sued for alleged sexual misconduct, even the frustration and complete collapse of his whole political strategy against Biden being totally overturned by the candidacy of Kamala Harris. Good God, uh, that was Kamala Harris. As I shared in the previous discussion, uh, Kamala Harris being born in the year of the dragon would be one of the most incompatible people for an association with Donald Trump being born in the year of the dog. So, coming back to character, we see Donald Trump is a Gemini. Now, from the point of view of evolving self actualization, Geminis are here to really evolve how to communicate and to connect with a path of intellectual, informational, media, and public communication that, from the universe's point of view, has integrity. See, for a lot of people who don't realize that spiritual astrology shows that there is a love and a moral kind of integrity associated with attitudes and beliefs and behaviors that we all have a calling to have a responsibility to. And if you're someone who doesn't understand that or realizes the journey of your soul, that can be rather problematic. Now, Trump is destiny number, adding up the numbers of his birthday. They add up to 1966, and you add those together, and that's a 22. He has the highest destiny number. The destiny numbers are 1 through 9, 11, and 22. The number 22 is the number of the master builder. That implies someone who has a calling to utilize their gifts, talents, and abilities and the opportunities that they may come into this life with in such a way that they can build over time a movement or a process in the economic, political realm of the structure of the society or the world that is of a positive and most uplifting humanitarian direction. So, the implication is there. His Sun and Uranus. Now he has a Uranus 5-degree conjunction, conjunct his North Node, also in Gemini. Uranus conjunct his Sun implies that he has been somewhat of a stalwart, iconoclastic maverick in prior lifetimes. That he is someone who, and favorably aspected to Jupiter in Libra, someone who has not bought into any kind of structural dogmatism or belief system or political ideology. Trump is truly someone who really ultimately believes only in himself and what could be accurate spiritual, ideological, cultural insights come through to him to activate in the face of the world. Yet the Jupiter trine in the Aquarian decadent of Libra in the house of money, business, finance, and that implies that he could be someone who is a cultural artist or a cultural societal minister of embracing mental, emotional, and spiritual practices and or belief systems that help people advance their faith and ability towards their unique individual business or economic opportunities. So in a sense, he's like Trump University somewhat attempted uh, to help empower people towards understanding how to work the real estate market and potentially attain wealth. Yet the underlying problem with this incredible confidence and ministerial sense of uh, desire for leadership and social advancement is whether there's a moral compass or not. And so we see also here that his moon is in a trine to Mars, Mars in Leo, right on his ascendant. This is a man who absolutely needs to be the center of attention. Leo is the dramatic lion, the leader, Mars in the Aries decadent of Leo, me, myself, and I represent, what's right, good, and great for everyone because it's great for me. So there's a proclivity to narcissism if there is not a moral compass, an ethical and moral compass. So that's where, as I looked at the chart of Kamala Harris and her Venus position, see, Venus in everyone's chart shows to what extent a person has understood the meaning of love and or their sensibility of their interconnectedness with all life and sentient beings and the inclination to cultivate gifts, talents, and abilities that serve their soul growth and that of others. That's what real prosperity is. However, remember we looked at Saturn, Kamala Harris having the highly elevated, exalted position of Saturn in her chart. Trump has Saturn in a conjunction with Venus. And so that Saturn is about contracting, controlling, and it's in an adverse position here. So when a person has Saturn conjunct Venus, it implies that they might be born into either a very wealthy family in which their father, Saturn represents their father, was someone who was very driven by materialism, property ownership, and material status, and therefore having strong expectations for their child or the soul to embrace that approach and attitude, or can imply someone who's born into an impoverished family, a poor family, or a challenging working class family. Because in either circumstance, it implies a karma of excessive attachment to self-worth being associated with money, property, material stature, and status, and control, and continuous, ambitiously, upwardly driven desire for social acknowledgement based on that materialistic ownership and stature. Now, that can work somewhat favorably for society or maybe not. And yet the Saturn, Venus in the Aquarian house, the 11th house, implies that that drive was meant to be evolved in a political way that could favorably design policies for the political economic development of a majority of people in society. But it can also imply a ruthless ambition towards elevated economic, material and a social political status for their own narcissistic satisfaction. This can also imply in personal relationships the desire for a woman or a personal romantic partner who is sometimes called the trophy wife or the beautiful wife, but the wife who is meant to enhance his status and appearance. Well, lastly, we look at, why has this ship gone in such a weird, to use the Democrats' term lately, direction? And we look at Mercury. Now, you recall that Kamala Harris had one of the highest karmic mercurial positions of her sun, Mercury conjunction trine Saturn, of leadership's ethical, moral stature and strategic ability politically. Well, Donald Trump has Mercury in Cancer in a square to Neptune with no other aspects, so it's an adverse karma. That's why he's a Gemini, because Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, and the fundamental question asked of any Gemini is, have you learned why you are here as someone who is called to evolve your intelligence and your communicative ability in an ethical, moral, and positive, cultivated and expressive direction for your own soul growth and that of society? Well, Mercury square Neptune is great for people who are creative writers, who are involved in film and television, who are engaged in the creation of media that can elevate a fantasy of uh, idealistic vision for the world, especially if they have a moral compass, which is doubtful here with the Venus Saturn conjunction. And they are here to be able to use their creative mind, very creative, even fantasy oriented, but creative mind that can be highly intuitive. The Mercury in Cancer is someone who can have a pretty powerful discernment of people's emotional responses to life circumstances. Mercury in Cancer in the 11th house is someone who can have a very cunning and shrewd, even manipulative, perceptive of how people may respond to emotional or economic and cultural issues of society. However, and so he had and has the choice of being guided in his communication to speak the truth of what he believes and understands to be the truth, and favorability for the most in terms of that truth. Or this aspect can imply someone who is a pathological narcissistic liar. I have to be frank, that from my experience and observation of Donald Trump, uh, and the fact that Politico and other fact checkers have claimed that during his presidency between 2016 and 2021, he expressed over 22,000 either lies or exaggerations. In one of his recent press conferences, fact checkers claimed that he exaggerated or lied within, I think, an hour's period of time, which is probably a record for someone, over 100 lies or exaggerations, and is almost willing to just say anything, like the crowd size of his inauguration was as large or larger than that of Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous speech at the reflection pool. I mean, so the evidence is clear here. Uh, Now, the in relationship to the Chart of the United States, um, vis-a-vis the most critical issues associated with the democratization of the political process system and economic opportunities for the middle class, vis-a-vis the Mercury opposite Pluto. Is it any coincidence that Donald Trump's Venus, as I've talked about it, the Venus-Saturn conjunction, the proclivity towards uh, narcissistic ambition for materialistic gain, control, and socioeconomic political status, is right there straddling the Mercury of the United States in the eighth house of the proclivity of the United States towards oligarchical or monopolistic consolidation of corporations and the billionaire class of wealth, power, and economic control. Need I say anything more? Who he really stands for? You know, his so-called tax cut during his administration uh, increased the deficit by trillions of dollars in our country and mainly benefited the billionaires and the largest corporations. There you go. But there's a sun sign at 22 degrees Gemini in the house of politics and relationships with the United States. And it's almost in an exact conjunction with the planet Mars. Now, and you'll see here that his sun is opposite the moon at 22 degrees Sagittarius, opposite the Mars of the United States. And that sun-moon opposition of his is in a square to the Neptune of the United States. Unlike Kamala Harris, whose Jupiter favorably aspected the Neptune, meaning the compassion and conserve the ideological democracy and values for ethical behavior. That this combination, Mars square Neptune in the chart of the United States, implies that there are times when there can be politicians or significant political or influential figures who can act and behave in ways that are deceptive, delusional, and or destructive for the ethical, moral, and ideological principles of democracy. And so Donald Trump's conjunction to Mars and square the Neptune is part and parcel to him being potentially a pariah for the United States. I'm just interpreting this. I'm just the messenger here, okay? And any skilled political, analytical astrologer could say the same thing. And so that, I think, says enough here about the karma and character to whet your appetite for the next video, which will be taking a look at the timing of the planets now through the election on November 5th. So that'll be Kamala Harris versus Trump election 2024, the upcoming video. Now, again, for those of you who would like to contact me for the free introductory astrology reading, I will post my information here again. And you can contact me either by email or looks like our lighting went out, but that's okay. We're at the end of our time here. And so please do contact me, and I will arrange for your free introductory reading. Email altazarastrology@gmail.com or visit my website, www.altazarastrology.com. Be well. See you at my next presentation.